Thank you so much for joining us. This is our young adults panel discussion here. Living with vasculitis is technically the title of this. So the people you see on your screen, apparently we are special enough to be pinned here. So that's cool, I guess. But we are kind of the panelists. So what we're going to do is just introduce ourselves first, and then we have some topics we're going to talk about. So it's kind of just a little roundtable discussion here for the next hour. We are, as you can hopefully tell by our faces, we are all young people and we all have vasculitis. So that's sort of the point of this panel. And what I'd also invite everyone to do as we continue, if you guys have any questions or things you would like to have us talk about, you can use the chat feature. So just throw whatever questions you guys have in the chat. And what we're going to do is make sure we take the final 10, 15 minutes or so and talk about any other questions you all have. So what we'll do just to kick things off, my name is Ben, by the way. I'll introduce myself last, but we'll go around here. I'll just go based on who I'm seeing on my screen. So Katrina, if you want to start and just tell us a little bit about yourself. I think probably what is always good for these is just where you're living, when you were diagnosed with vasculitis, what type of disease you have, and how long you've lived with the disease. So we'll just start with you, Katrina.
So hi, my name is Katrina. I'm 21 years old. I have Takayasu's arteritis. I was diagnosed in 2016 when I was 14. I'm living in Wisconsin. I'm currently a senior in college, and I also am a patient research partner for the VPPRN Pediatric Registry.
Woohoo! You're from Wisconsin, which is the most important thing you just said there, because I also am as well. All right, Yanique, do you want to unmute yourself, because it is your time to tell us about yourself?
I am 24 years old. I was diagnosed with vasculitis in 2009. I was 9 years old, and I have been in medicine since 2011.
Very cool. You have me beat on the diagnosis, Yanique. You have me beat. Yeah, that is for sure. And then Kyle, we'll go to you. We were just talking earlier. Kyle has an unbelievable little Nice, France picture in the background there, which I'm a big fan of. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Even though I haven't been myself, but it is a gorgeous picture. You're welcome to look at that instead of my face. I won't be offended. But hello, everyone. My name is Kyle. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am 24 years old. I was diagnosed in 2021 with Henoch-Schlonen purpura, also known as IgA vasculitis. Currently, I am out of college. I am doing the professional big boy job thing where I'm a copywriter day by day, and I also run a literary magazine by night, because I am a Gemini, and that means even my passions become my work.
You're doing it all, Kyle. No need to, look, you don't have to explain yourself. It's fine. It's very, very honorable of you. Yes. So, and then we also have Jenna, who was just, I think her Wi-Fi just went out a second ago. So we're just waiting for Jenna to get back in. When she does, I'll intro her as well here. My name is Ben, and he, him, my pronouns here. I am in Las Vegas, where our Golden Knights just won the Stanley Cup. So celebrations are abounding right now. So I was diagnosed with EGPA vasculitis back in 2014 when I was about to go into my senior year of college at the prestigious Harvard of Boone County, University of Missouri. And I'm a sports broadcaster here in Vegas. I've done some work with the VF since late 2016, early 2017. So I've had the opportunity to go to a couple symposiums, and we've had a lot of roundtables like these in person before, but the unique thing about those, it's always been just us, just the young adults in the room. And so we wanted to kind of open this up, whether it's young adults here who are in the Zoom, whether it's parents, loved ones, just to kind of give us some insights as well. So as we kick it off here, and like I said, once Jenna gets back in, I'll have her introduce herself as well here. The thing I always think about, and I always think of the question I get asked the most. It's just, what was your reaction when you got diagnosed? Because like for me, I was 20. And you don't know anything about the disease. You don't have any other friends who have the disease. So I think the biggest thing is talking about what was the most challenging part. Since for us, it's a lot different than being older, being diagnosed, understanding you've had other health history, you have all these other resources. Because for us, at least for me, there wasn't much else before my diagnosis. So we'll just kick it off, and this isn't necessarily asking questions to anybody, whoever wants to pipe up and talk about what was their experience like. At least in in my case, I just remember kind of being in that naive spot of thinking, oh, it'll definitely get better. Like, yeah, I've been sick a couple of times, this will be all right, and not really understanding just how serious it was because I didn't really have the resources or the knowledge. So at least that was for me the hardest part about just the immediacy of being diagnosed. And I'm curious what you all felt felt in a similar way, just going back to when you were first diagnosed and what you felt, right at the time.
Yeah, so I was, like I said before, I was 14 years old and a freshman in high school. So, initially, like, I was hospitalized at the time of my diagnosis. A lot of pills was a big surprise, I would say. And then a lot of trips to the doctor as well. Probably 2, 3, 4 times a week, I was having appointments at the hospital. And of course, along with a disease like this, leading to me being diagnosed, my disease was quite active, and so the symptoms of the disease plus the symptoms of all these new medications I was on, I was no longer able to attend high school regularly. So I was diagnosed in the beginning of March, and I basically had to miss the end of my school year, and then I started my sophomore year with half days, and it all was different from then on. But yeah, just kind of for me, it was just an entire new lifestyle. Of course, I had gone to school all the years prior, and so yeah, to be taking all these pills and going to see all these doctors and being taken away from my friends at school, it was, yeah, just everything was uprooted for me.
I think in a similar venture, the hardest part was before the diagnosis for myself. So my vasculitis, for those unfamiliar, it's the purpura part of the name where my arms and my legs were covered in these red spots. That I was stumped because normally if you have like a little bruise, you press your finger on it and it turns white and then it comes back. But these were under the skin. And I had gone to the ER, I had gone to the dermatologist, and for the first 3 months, no one could tell me what was going on, because being 22 years old with a vasculitis form that typically only affects young kids under the years of 10, it was under the radar. The scariest part was the pain and the inflammation that took away some of my mobility, changed in day to day, that I texted my partner and I texted my best friends every single night being like, I love you, because I was terrified that some mornings I just wasn't going to wake up. Getting the diagnosis while trying to find, after I had graduated that summer, going into that fall and the winter, trying to find my first job and deciding whether or not I had the mental and physical ability to be my best self in an interview. All of them remote, so they were all virtual, but it was scary because I suddenly had a lot of questions on, hey, what is your health plan like? Which I never before this had to really consider. But then within joining the job force, my first role was a hybrid, half in office, half online. And I used a lot of unpaid sick time and a lot of PTO on days just because I could not physically move. And coming into it, almost a year now, actually, yeah, definitely over a year now, it is still that what is the day going to bring with my medication? Why am I still actively having this form of a disease which my rheumatologist believes will eventually come to pass? And it's just the hardest part is, what does today look like? Because you really have to take every single day one at a time.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we can all relate to that. And I think that's why this is so helpful because Katrina, you talk about being just starting high school. Kyle, you're just coming out of college. I was going into my final year of college. So, Katrina, you say having to it's a completely different lifestyle and complete change from everything you've known. And so I think it's easy to sit there and say, oh yeah, you just figure out how to, you just have to live with it. Yeah, you just deal with the drugs and the side effects. It's very easy to say that in practice. It's a total other thing when you're in the middle of, especially like where we're at, transitions in different parts of our lives. And so like for me, I did not want to change at all. I was about to be a senior in college. I'm like, one more year of freedom. We're going to party. We are not going to care. This is not a disease that is going to change how we live our lives. And I was humbled very, very quickly, because when you're on 80 milligrams of prednisone a day and you're trying to drink copious amounts of alcohol as a 21-year-old, does not exactly go well. So I think that is something that it might maybe is probably different than others. If you're talking about young adults specifically, where the changes that you are forced to undergo, it's not necessarily like a choice. You sort of have to do it, but that willingness to adapt, I think, is the hardest part. And just accept that, okay, I'm different. I got things going on. I need to take care of them. I need to learn how to understand what's going on in my body. And at least for me, and I think that's why this is so helpful, because we have people who are kind of all over the spectrum as far as when they were diagnosed, as far as different points growing up and in their childhood. And with that, I did want to bring in Jenna, because the unfortunate Wi-Fi there in North Carolina kicked you out. But Jenna is back. So Jenna, first off, if you just can go ahead and just tell us about your disease, how long you've been diagnosed, and where you're living, and then I'll circle back into the first topic we had talked about here right before you got back on.
All right, awesome. Well, sorry for that little Wi-Fi thing. Apparently went out in the entire city, but we are back on and we are good. So yes, my name is Jenna Lee. I am 19. I was diagnosed in February of 2020. So, a month before COVID. And I got to do all of my treatment throughout COVID. I was diagnosed with microscopic polyangiitis. So that is primarily my small blood vessels. And I luckily was diagnosed pretty early. And so I didn't have really much organ involvement at the time. I had a little bit of damage to my kidneys and a lot of like skin symptoms, so rashes and lesions and stuff. But I was on prednisone and methotrexate for 2 years, and I am now clinically in remission. I am a junior in college. I go to North Carolina State University, and I'm on a pre-physician's assistant track, hopefully to go into rheumatology and maybe help out more people. We'll see.
Wonderful. Yes, fingers crossed. Go
Yes.
Wolfpack. Moniker. So the first topic we had talked about, Jen, and this is this is super helpful, just because, like I said, I was diagnosed 1 year to go in college, Kyle coming out of college, Katrina going into high school. So for you, Jenna, sort of end of high school, getting ready, going into college as well. What was this the hardest part, right off the bat, being diagnosed and trying to navigate this whole new life that we have once we have vasculitis?
I think for me, junior year of high school, I think, is probably one of the most important years you're going to have. You have to really focus on your GPA, make sure all your extracurriculars, you're building your application for college. So essentially for your future. And I was really just out of it my entire junior year. I was feeling all of the symptoms prior to my diagnosis of just being tired all the time, horrible headaches. I was in and out of the doctor. And so I struggled really bad in school prior to the diagnosis. And then after my diagnosis, it was just trying to continue to balance this new disease, but then also, okay, look at your future, because this is not going to be your future. You are going to be having this problem for a few years. Okay, it's temporary. Don't let it affect your entire future. So I really did, like Kyle, one day at a time. And I would have out my list of things, and I just did everything on that list that day. And if it didn't get done, oh well, it would go to the next day. And so really the hardest part was just trying to make sure that I still continue to set myself up for success, but was taking care of myself at the same time.
No, I love that. And I think to an extent, like I think of that mentality today, even though it's been 8 years since this will be 9 years in July since I was diagnosed. So I think a lot of those things that we learn, when we're young, you go through it, it can help you. It stays with you. It doesn't it's not like as soon as you get better and you're off prednisone, you just forget all that. To me, it sticks with you indefinitely. And I love that you shared that, Jenna. And I'll bring in Yanique too, because Yanique again she's our trooper. She's in transit right now. But Yanique, anything you want to add to that, just as far as your journey? What was the most challenging thing from when you were first diagnosed?
Yes, absolutely. Quite honestly, I feel like, well, when I was prior to even diagnosis was extremely hard. I don't remember, a lot of the details are sketchy because I was so young, and honestly, my mother was the one, like pulling all of the shots as my medical proxy, and honestly, she is the reason why I am alive today, because they gave me a 10% chance of living and a 90% chance of dying at 9 years old. But I remember, like even prior to the diagnosis, being constantly tired and just wanting to always lay down, having these horrible headaches, and just skipping out on family parties and things like that. I was really like isolating myself because I was in so much pain. But since I was a kid, I didn't really know how to explain what I was feeling or what I was going through. But the reason why we even ended up going to the hospital in the first place is because I ended up having a seizure. So when I had the seizure, they called the ambulance, rushed me to the hospital. And I don't remember exactly what it took for them to figure out what was wrong with me, but they had no idea. And they had to end up doing brain surgery. They had to end up doing brain surgery and removing the vasculitis from my brain. And that was extremely difficult. Like, I still have the scars to prove it on my head and as well as on my abdomen. They removed the skull and put it in my abdomen to like preserve the bones. But it ended up not even working out because, all of the heavy medication that some people have, mentioned ended up breaking the bone down. So it's kind of like a pointless scar, but it's there now. And I think it's more of a battle scar. So I feel like coming out of the situation, it's made me so much stronger. And yeah, I feel like it's made me so much stronger and given me a whole new appreciation for life. But I've lost a lot of friends on account of even being diagnosed or having the residual effects of the vasculitis and the surgery and all that is the fact that now I have partial paralysis on my left side. So that has affected me tremendously from then to now to present day. Like even today, I was on my lunch break. I feel like I'm talking too much, but on my lunch break today, I was just trying to carry everything back to the office with me, and I ended up dropping something and freaking out. It gets really hard. It gets really hard having to do everything, not having use of both hands. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with some medical malpractice because I don't think I should have had a disability at the end of this. But that's neither here nor there. It is what it is at this point. Having vasculitis is hard, but I am still dealing with the residual effects. It's kind of like a lifetime thing, so it feels a little harder. Even though I've been in remission for so long, I'm still dealing with these later things, such as the paralysis on my left side. But I'm really happy to continue with you guys.
No, and we're so happy that you're here. I mean, and I know we've talked in the past, Yanique. So to have you here and just to share the insights, it's just so helpful for everybody just to kind of understand what we've all gone through. And I mean, there's so many things that you bring up. I could go off of, but it's like the whole concept of just because you're in remission just means that you're good to go is sort of this false notion. And I also think the whole friends thing is definitely something worth talking about. And like I remember not really. I mean, I brought it up to a couple of people, but I didn't. Again, you're a senior in college. You're you're at a big university. There's this culture of partying and drinking and everything. I didn't really want my friends to like feel bad for me or think I just couldn't do stuff. So I never felt comfortable, at least for the first couple of years, actually being truthful and honest with my friends about what was going on, just because A, I didn't really know what was going on. And B, I didn't really know how they would take it, if they'd understand, if they'd just like laugh at me and be like, well, we're going to go party. See you later. Have fun, have fun in bed. So I don't know for the rest of you, how it was, the challenge of just from the friend impact, how you brought it up to them, if you lost friends along the way, but I think it's something we've all definitely gone through.
I resonate with that a lot on many levels. But at the end of the day, even though we lose friends, we gain friends as well that accept us for who we are. And I feel lucky and blessed enough to say that I have found, friends who accept me for the way that I am and love me, not only in spite of it, but because you know what I mean. And yeah, I family support has been extremely vital. I don't think I would have been able to survive what I'm into without my family. So I'm forever grateful. For everyone who has stuck by me through this journey, through this life journey. A lot of people ask if I was born like this, and I have to tell them, no, this happened in my childhood, and then there's always some sort of explanation. I'm not sure if you feel like that too, but you hear yourself having to constantly explain yourself to people, you find yourself having to do that a lot.
A lot of nodding heads over here, Yanique. That's all I'll say. Yeah, definitely felt the same way. What have you guys felt as far as for the rest of you, just as far as that same thing? Because I know I can relate to it for sure.
Yeah, I'd say that as far as lifelong friends, like friends who knew me before my diagnosis, I'd say I held on to, those are like primarily the friends I have now. Similar to what you were saying, Ben, I didn't, like, even in college now, I don't tell a lot of friends, which I would say isolates me in a way, because I think if I did share, then people would be more understanding, or like maybe there's just like an elephant in the room kind of thing. But I don't ever lead with my disease. I use a mobility scooter. I continue to mask. I masked before COVID, now after COVID. Well, how it is now, but yeah, I would say that I can bring it up if I want to. It kind of consumes my life sometimes, so it comes up naturally in situations, but I definitely think more people are, compassionate when they know that something is going on. Like, I had to get an ambulance from my school this past semester, and at first I was mortified. I was like, how do I even go back to college? My professors, my peers, they saw me go out on a stretcher in an ambulance, and I was like, how do I recover from this? How do I just show back up and sit in class when they saw me get taken out of class? And so yeah, I think it's unavoidable sometimes that it just comes up, because yeah, this is our life now, and it is a serious thing. But I found, like I said, I found a lot of compassion in explaining your circumstances. I think everyone has something going on, whether it's health or family or some kind of personal circumstance. And so yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't lead with it. I don't as far as friends go, I don't it's not something we really talk about. It's just I don't feel comfortable talking about it, and so we just don't. But if it comes up, I address it like I need to, and then, we talk about something else. But definitely, I would use the word isolating. I think that just being tired all the time and knowing that your friends are going to a bar, going to go get together and watch Netflix or something, and you have to go and nap. It just eliminates you from some of the social opportunities to make friends or pursue and enhance friendships.
Yes, I feel very similarly with how like I don't lead with it. I feel like my kind of situation with friends was kind of in like that transitional period of your life when you're going from high school to college and your friends kind of go every which way. But my friend that I had before my diagnosis, she was actually in the hospital with me when I got my diagnosis. And so we bonded really well over that. And then after we graduated, we went to different schools. I mean, we still talk, but kind of separated a little bit. And then in college, I would say it was something that I, told my roommates, hey, I have this. What I said to them was, it's not a big deal. It is, but I said to them, it wasn't a big deal just because I, at the time, did not know these people. And I was afraid that they were going to make it my entire identity before getting to know me. So I really got to know them a lot better. And then that's when I chose to kind of give a little bit more information, and they had to take me to the hospital one time, and they at that point knew. But now it's definitely something that I wait a little bit longer into a friendship. I think just because of the fear of people are going to think of me, oh, that's Jenna with vasculitis, not Jenna, who also happens to have vasculitis. So, I mean, friends, they're really, really great to have. And obviously they are amazing supports. But I just choose to kind of wait a little bit longer.
I have a little bit of a different experience wherein I've fully embraced this modern age of technology and social media, where for the longest time, the folks that were by my side with every single night being like, I don't know what's going on and I'm really scared, I updated them as things went on. But then it was kind of like everyone else, the people I graduated with, the people I work with, the friends I continue to make in a virtual means. I kind of use social media to my advantage, where I, a Rare Disease Awareness Day and Vasculitis Awareness Month. And I'm like, here you go. This is me. Take advantage of it what you will. And that way it's not necessarily an elephant in the room, but they have this baseline understanding. So if there is spots covering my arm, they know I'm not contagious. It is just me. It's just a me thing, I promise. And then they hopefully are just like, oh, that's what that is. And then we don't need to discuss it. I'm really thankful to have made some really good friends recently, just because getting your first job, graduating college, there's always going to be a kind of a turnaround with your friend groups. And that's always going to be a thing throughout the rest of our lives. But I'm lucky enough to have, friends that are also, different abilities and have, are also neurodivergent. And we all kind of understand each other on a basis of, let's just check in. How many spoons you got today? You need space? You need anything? And even though they don't have vasculitis, we can all understand I'm going to just take a nap. Because what is young adulthood except a lot of naps?
Big nap
And,
guy over here.
Oh yeah, and iced coffee.
Big nap guy here. Yeah. I mean, I feel, yeah, we all have the fatigue still, I would assume, all of us, and have at some point been on the prednisone or other other types of steroids. Like that probably goes for all of us. And again, since we're about halfway through here, for those of you, you feel free to also any questions you have for us, or just as far as if I'm always interested to hear what people's other for those of you who have been diagnosed, what your biggest fear was, or if you're a parent of somebody, what was the biggest challenge when you started out? I think we're always just curious to kind of hear and talk about that and share with it. And for me, and I think that the common thing for all of us here is in some way we were transitioning into a different part of our lives, whether it's college to post grad, high school to college, childhood into junior high, into high school eventually. So there's that transition that goes on, and I think not only is it the friendship element, but it's also just your personal well-being. And I think about I would always joke with my mom. I think my mom is actually on this Zoom tonight, but we'd always joke like everybody has something. Like, everybody has something going on. It might be minor, it might be major, but everybody has something. And it took a while for me to really understand that and and really embrace that side of it, where I kind of, at a certain point you sort of realize like, okay, like all that really matters is just you being happy, you being satisfied with where you're at, and needing to get the approval of others or needing to have everybody understand what's going on with you. It sort of takes a back seat. So that's kind of how I've tried to approach it. And partially is because, as I think we've all sort of talked about this in our own way, the fatigue, being tired mentally, physically is a big part of this disease. And so you have to kind of compartmentalize. And so at least for me, like going into my career and wanting to be a broadcaster where you have to work crazy hours, travel a ton, it was definitely not an easy transition to make. So at least for me, that's kind of helped as I've gone in and really focused on, all right, maybe the social life, not going to be going out that much anymore, but I'm going to focus in on the things that really matter to me. So for those of us, and I know like, so for Kyle and Yanique, like for those of us kind of in the quote unquote workforce, like, you go, you have to you become an adult, you have to go into the real world. I'm curious how that's been like for you, just that transition. Because I know for me, it was not easy at first. And there were a lot of days where it was like, get home from work and I basically just eat and go to bed because I just had no energy for anything else. I'm curious how it's been for you guys specifically, just making that full transition. And obviously, you don't have the umbrella anymore of, well, it's college and you have your parents still to, who can support you. It's literally just out in the open and you're there for yourself, so to speak.
Well, I feel like for me, the transition, it's been, I guess, it's been relatively smooth. I'm thankfully in a job position where I really enjoy what I do, and I'm able to help people with different abilities. And being a person with a different ability myself, I find myself to be like a role model to my students. And I'm not a teacher, but I'm a vocational counselor. So I work with neurodivergent children, and even though mine might be physical and theirs might be intellectual or developmental, it's still all within that broad umbrella of different abilities. So, but in terms of the tiredness that I feel sometimes, I feel like that has more or less to do with the amount of energy that I put out to others, and sometimes anxiety more than vasculitis. But I know that anxiety is also a neuro. The two are interrelated, and I'm just not aware of it. Maybe some research can be done on that, but I feel like that's why panels like this are so important to raise that awareness. So, things like this can be, discovered. But in terms of the transition, I feel like it's been pretty smooth, and I am working full time. I'm technically doing two full-time jobs, so it's a lot, but I feel like I'm making it work the best way I can. I have my full-time job that I get paid for, and then I am in the process of building a nonprofit of my own. So that's literally two full-time jobs. I feel like it's all worth it. That's my.
I think, again, on the opposite side of things, I promise I'm not going to keep, but that's the thing. You get a whole range of different experiences, which is why I'm really glad we're all here. I got my first spot in January when I was trying to find a job, and I got the diagnosis 1 week before I started. in March. That transition was really difficult because I didn't want my work environment to know, because I was worried that my old employer is an at-will employer. That language had really made me nervous of, well, if I can't physically do the job, are they going to let me go? And it was like, I can't let go of this opportunity. I mentioned it earlier, I'm a copywriter. So I am essentially sitting 8 hours every day, typing away. And when one of the symptoms of my disease is inflammation in my joints, that caused a lot of issues early on before medication kind of was able to get things in a tolerable range. The role was hybrid. So it was 3 days in office, 2 days remote. And I waited for those remote days every single week. And the office my desk was at was 2 flights of stairs up, and there was no elevator. So it was not a really friendly, physically friendly office. I am forgetting the word. Accessible. It was not really an accessible office. But even with my knees and my ankles, there were days where I just couldn't do it, and then I had to call out. And that took a big role on how they saw me originally. And kind of my first 3 months were like, we need you to be a little bit more present. And I was like, I'll use this opportunity to tell my manager what I was going through. And she did her best to understand, but then kind of emphasize, well, these are our policies. And I was like, great. Understandably, I have since left that role. And during my exit interview, they were like, well, why are you leaving? And I'm like, well, I found a fully remote role, which is going to better prioritize my health. So that transition now, after a year of that previous role, which wasn't necessarily super understanding in a fully remote role, has made things a lot better. I will proudly say there are days I take those daily meetings from my comfortable bed. And there are days where I have a heat pad on my knee, and there are days where I go off camera and immediately pop 2 Tylenol in my mouth and we continue on, because they don't necessarily need to know, because the environment that they're fostering is just so much more accessible to my needs. So in that hyperbole somewhere, there is the message of there will be some people that understand more and just what the workforce is like. Post-COVID, a lot of places are very remote friendly, and I was lucky to find a new role that supported that. And just, it's hard and sometimes it gets better, but currently still dealing with it. It's what can I do, like finding a new role that makes my body have an easier time.
Yeah, no, and I love you bringing that up, because it's to acknowledge and accept that, yeah, like there are going to be ups and downs. I think we sometimes get caught in that like fairy tale world of, oh, all right, there's a diagnosis and you're sick, and then you go on medication and then you get better, and then there's just no other roadblocks the rest of the way. And a lot of times that's just that's not the reality. And I think, like I definitely felt kind of, feel the same way, Kyle, from just the hesitance of, my first job. It was, maybe 9 months after getting diagnosed, coming out of my senior year. And job market when you're in broadcasting is very tough, because everybody, it's not like you need, it's not like it's rocket science. It's pretty easy to just talk about sports. So there's a very, very deep pool of people who want to do it. And so the pay is really bad, and there's not many, you don't get benefits. It's not a very, worker friendly type environment. So I kind of looked at it at first as this thing, like, oh, it's definitely a negative. I don't want to bring up my disease to people. And it's almost similar to just like with friends for me. It took me a while to get comfortable with it. Now now it's been almost 9 years. Like, I'm super comfortable. I'm very open about my disease, and it's because I've at least, I have the confidence now, and I've dealt with it long enough. I know my body really well, and I know the limitations, and I also know the things I can still do. So it's one of those things, like at the time though, I didn't want to bring it up. And it's one of those things where when you're trying to do like what Yanique was saying a second ago, where like she's got 2 full-time jobs, which is just insane to me. But I think most people who are completely healthy on 1 full-time job, like that's, enough of something to try and overcome. But like in our industry where I have a full-time job, I have about 4 or 5 different freelance jobs on the side, and there's a lot of competition in those other roles. You kind of play that balance, and it kind of comes down to how comfortable you are. So I've always felt though, like just, being honest about it is good, but also being like still making sure, I would always emphasize, but I can still do this stuff. Like I wouldn't bring it up if I didn't really feel confident in being able to do my job. So it's one of those tricky things where there's not like a right answer to it. And I think that's why, like, Callie, I don't feel bad, Callie, you're on the other side of some, of your, as far as your opinion goes, just because there is really no right answer to all this. And that's kind of why we're all here, just trying to navigate it. Not to make Katrina and Jenna, you feel like, we're about to go into the real world and freak out. But I just wanted to bring that up from the full-time workforce standpoint, just because it is, it's something that we all eventually will have to, go through and be in, no matter where we're at now. The other part of this is also just the actual in college, student elements, which, as I said earlier, I kind of just skirted because I was like, screw this. I don't care. I'm going to still live my life the same, and definitely regretted that. It was a rough senior year for me, and it kind of paid the price, and, had a long, road back health-wise after that. But for Jenna and Katrina, for you guys, what has it been like now? How do you going to class, studying, taking tests, talking to your teachers about that? How have you guys managed all of that? Because I think that's a pretty daunting thing for a lot of people when they get diagnosed.
Yeah. So I kind of had a little bit of like an interesting kind of first year in college. I was there for 3 months, and then like everybody says, bad roommate situation. So moved home and ended up actually moving out of my parents' house and had a full-time job while also in school full-time. And so that was kind of a very interesting situation. And when I was doing it, I wasn't thinking of what was best for me. It was more thinking, well, how can I give myself this like quote unquote life that I feel like I want? And so I honestly was those 9 months where I had that full-time job and was in school full-time. It was actual torture. And I would go, luckily my job, I could wear sweats, and I did. And my schoolwork slumped. But being in school for those 3 months before I did have my full-time job, I would say I probably skipped a lot of classes that I should not have skipped. And I had to justify that to myself a lot, because it felt like I was doing myself a disservice while also doing myself a favor. Because, going to class when you barely can like get out of bed because you're so tired, you're not going to learn anything, but also like you not going to class, like that just feels wrong. So I was having that internal battle with myself, and my grades slumped. I considered literally dropping out of college for a short time to try to like let my health kind of get better. But luckily with my school, I was able to get an amazing disabilities service person, and she worked with me so much, and my professors were outstanding and have still been outstanding, and they will accommodate for anything because they don't want you to fail, because it affects their rankings and ratings too. So they don't want you to fail. So really just using the resources. They have resources for you. You might have to search for them, but using those resources and listening to your body, even if it means you have to skip class, it's going to be fine. Skip the class, take care of yourself. School will wait. But just really use those resources. That's really what I did. And it's worked for me.
So I would say that my experience in college this far has kind of been twofold. When I went into college, my first 2 years, it happened to be like COVID happened during my freshman year, and so that allowed me to it was more accessible for me. It allowed me to, Zoom class from my bed and things that were it just kind of came to me. My bad days, I was able to attend class from my pajamas and nobody had to know because we all had our cameras off. But but I did. So when I started college, I worked, like Jenna was saying, with an accessibility person, and she helped me tremendously. Send like a accommodations memo to my professors. When I was diagnosed, I lost vision in my left eye, and then I had tremendous headache. So that was and then my mobility is limited as well with my major arteries being affected, but those are my primary things. And we were able to address them, and the teachers were kind, and I was able to have a successful first 2 years of college. And then unfortunately my disease relapsed in July of 2021. And so I, like Ben was saying, I was put on 80 milligrams of prednisone again, and was in and out of the hospital. And I tried to move into college. I did move into college that following semester, and I had to quickly move back home. So I did take a year off of college. It was consumed with medical appointments again, and college just would not have been even possible those 2 semesters I took off. But when I returned, part of my relapse was that the artery to my right arm closed. So I'm right hand dominant. When you're doing school, you have to write, you have to type, everything, right? And so that was a tremendous burden that just came upon me during my time in college. And so I got in touch with like adaptive technology places and was like, how can I use my left hand? I taught myself how to write with my left hand, which it was amazing at the time, but it is not realistic. So anyways, it was a lot of reworking my memo, and I had to change my major so I didn't have to take the labs of science anymore, because I can't pipette with my non-dominant hand. They're chemicals. You can't, it's dangerous. So I would say that, again, my great accessibility lady was there, and she was able to help me get in touch with my professors and say, hey, how can I still participate in your class when I can't volunteer to go and write on the board? And again, I found great understanding, and I was able to verbally tell the professor what I wanted written on the board, and she would help me by writing it on the board. So yeah, I would say that they'll work with you. You just have to be your best advocate for yourself. You know your body best. You know what you need. A lot of the times we're academically able to complete the work. It's a matter of physically being able to complete the work. And so, yeah, definitely there's days I send emails to my professors like, hey, I'm just not going to make it to class today. A nice thing that happened kind of now that COVID has happened is that some of the professors will record their lectures on Zoom and post those. So like Kyle was saying, the world is becoming more accessible, and I think if we take advantage of that, it's going to make it easier for us.
Yeah, and I'm so glad, because I remember meeting you, Katrina, when you were in high school, and I know we talked about just like all the concerns and getting ready to go to college, and you had to go to a college close to home so you could go to your doctor's appointments and everything. So no, I'm so happy. Like the fact that you've been able to overcome all that is amazing, and I think it should not go unnoticed for people here, just to battle and to advocate for yourself and to grow into your voice and everything. And I think for people who go into college, just understanding like the teachers, your peers, they want to help. It's just you kind of have to get comfortable with being your own self advocate, and also knowing that it's not fair. You aren't perfectly healthy, but you also kind of have to deal with it, and it's sort of a good way to then transition into the real world, because the real world is kind of similar, right? Like people will be compassionate, they'll be understanding, but also it still is what it is, as Kyle was saying, and you have to kind of just learn how to make the best of it. So those are all amazing. I'm so glad we brought up those few topics, because to go deep into all of them was, I think, a really beneficial way to do this. We still have about 10 minutes, so I want to make sure we have time for our questions here. So they're coming in fast and furious. So we'll just try to kind of go rapid fire, and I'll go first. I'm just seeing some of these as they come up here. So Laura, I feel like Laura's speaking directly to me and Kyle with this. How do you deal with ensuring good health insurance coverage that covers all medications and doctor's appointments once you turn 26 and become too old to stay on your parents' insurance? That is a multi-million, billion, maybe dollar question being asked there by Laura. Kyle, you want to take this one?
I can. So I'm not 26 yet. I am 24, but I've been off my parents' insurance since I got into college because I went on my college insurance. And then I was disowned because I'm part of the LGBTQ community, but we're going to skip past that. So I've been on my own. And so I've had to focus on really whatever my workforce has to offer. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. What I can offer is, I'm going to put this link in chat. This is a safe link, people, because you know it's coming from me. That is Cost Plus Drugs. It is a pharmaceutical company that was founded by one of the guys on Shark Tank. And they have such a variety of medications on there. And they can take insurance now, but they are such low cost because there is no third party. So my rheumatologist had no clue of it. I only found out again because of the internet. And I get all of my medications for my IgA vasculitis through there, my Celebrex and my colchicine. And it's only for a 3-month dose of each of those. It only cost me $50. Where colchicine, if I had gone to CVS with the insurance plan that my employer offers, would cost me over $200. And it has been a huge financial lifesaver. I really encourage folks to check it out, bring it up to your doctors. They've got anything from skincare to just, lots of good stuff. They also have prednisone on there, which can also be pricey. And I know that might be a common medication between everyone on this call, even from parents. So take advantage of that, look for other resources. I'd also encourage connecting with hospital and doctors' financial assistance staff, because they want to help you too. They need their money, but if there's anything that they can offer, they will try to do.
No, that's great. It's funny you mentioned that. I use a company called RX Help Centers. Like, that's their website, rxhelpcenters.com. I think it's $50 a month as well. And it's sort of similar because, like, I'm so busy, I don't have time really to file the patient assistance paperwork every single year for my Nucala, which is, I've been on Nucala since 2016 as a biologic. And so they kind of help out with that. So there are definitely really good resources and ways to go about that. And like, I'm on, you can do it without, having to buy up to some super expensive, insurance program. Like, I'm on, I'm just on a state exchange program here in Nevada, and it's, it just covers my basic stuff, and it covers my Dupixent. But then everything, I'm able to get the other stuff that I need, whether that's, inhalers or Nucala, and it's like a $50 a month thing, and they just, they handle it all for you. So that's really good to bring up. I'm just going through here. I kind of chuckled at this, not to make fun of Adam's question, but parent of 13-year-old with GPA here, is fatigue still an issue when you are in remission and off prednisone? Yes. Is my short answer. Everybody nodding, everybody feel the same way. And I think it's more than anything, you just have to kind of learn. You learn your body. You learn when you need to take breaks. I turned 30 this year, and I still deal with it. Still have days where I feel like I've been hit by a truck when I wake up, and a lot of that is just kind of management. And it's there's not really like a great way to deal with it. You just kind of have to get used to listening to your body, and and just being honest with yourself and not trying to push yourself too hard, because that's something that I definitely struggled with here in the past. So let's see what else. Oh, from Kathleen, this is a good one. Mom of newly diagnosed 17-year-old going into her senior year. Did anybody change or focus on diet to help support vasculitis, looking at food as medicine and how to take care of yourself outside all of the meds, prednisone and others? That is a really, really good question. Anybody have thoughts on that one?
I did, big time.
Yeah.
I am probably crazy, like clinically crazy when it comes to paying attention to what I put in my body. And I did this whole thing when I was first diagnosed, and went like fully anti-inflammatory diet, to the point where I did too much, and I developed a bad relationship with food. And so then I kind of took a step back and looked at, what does my body need and what does my body not need, and what do I just want? And so I personally do not consume any other meat besides chicken and occasionally salmon. I noticed for me personally, red meat and like pork, poultry, that was just too hard on my body. And I noticed just like I was getting more like spots on me. I was not feeling good. I don't consume a lot of dairy. I don't consume a lot of sweets. Just really just a very simple anti-inflammatory diet. And I honestly think once I really got into that, I noticed that I had more energy. I just like I just felt so much better. I used to get really weird rashes on my legs from vasculitis, and they got so much better, like way less dark. Once I started doing this diet, I would have random swelling. The swelling went away. I paid attention so much, and I really think it paid off for me personally. So I mean, it's definitely something you can try, but it worked for me, and I get excited talking about it.
We can tell. No, and I mean, when you find something that works too, and I think we all have our own, like everybody's different. Vasculitis, it impacts us all in different ways. But when you find something that works and you can notice like a clear change, and sometimes it can just be as simple as like for me, it was just like I played sports growing up and forcing myself just to get active again and work out, go out and play golf and get outside and just some of those like natural holistic things that might be difficult to quantify just medically, but it can, there are certain things that work for all of us. So I love that you found that, Jenna. It's great. And Yanique, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying I agree with that 1,000%. For me, I know in terms of our diagnoses, westernized medicine is usually like the way that we go, but I feel like holistic medicine and holistic remedies is just as valuable, if not more. So I've been experiencing eczema, which is obviously an inflammatory disease as well, and obviously exacerbated by vasculitis. So I didn't really change my diet. I would like to, I would like to go more plant-based. I do plant-based here and there, but I feel like something that I've changed that's helped me dramatically is regularly taking CMOS. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with CMOS, but it's helped with the inflammation and my energy levels, and it's just changed my life in many, many ways. And yeah. It provides 92 out of the 106 your body requires on a regular basis. So if you guys are interested in like learning more about that, I would suggest that you do some research, looking to Dr. Sebi. He speaks all about it. And, let's help each other on a path to wellness, because we all need it.
Absolutely. So I second that. No, I think we all feel kind of, the same way, trying to find out the best thing that works for us. So I know we're coming up on the end of time. We can probably fit in one more question. I know, Carmen's question, I think we it's sort of similar to what we talked about earlier. So I saw Kyle put that link in the chat, costplusdrugs.com. Again, I can also put mine in the chat, rxhelpcenters.com, which I for both of us, that's worked really, really well. And we're thinking of you. Carmen, I have heard the compression socks are very, very good for a lot of people. So that is very good advice. And I think the last one, this is just a good, I think, general one, and I want to make sure we get to it because Sheila was the first one to ask a question. Just how long did it take for a clear diagnosis? Because I'm sure there are people who are either the parents of patients or just patients in general where it's kind of murky. It just takes a lot of, long time for things to get cleared out. How long did it take to get the legitimate, full, clear diagnosis? For me, it took about 15 months. A lot of tons. We thought there was severe allergy stuff going on and thousands of panels and everything was negative and we didn't know. And it took me basically, going into full blown vasculitis mode, where I had the rashes all over my legs and arms and hands, and the super bad abdominal pain, and the breathing was really, really bad. So it took me kind of going to the worst possible level where my oxygen rates were below 90 to finally then undergo all the testing and get the diagnosis. So the point being, it takes some time, and I felt like 15 months was kind of the lower end of the spectrum. So I don't know if you guys just don't mind just talking quickly, if you're comfortable with just how long it took and how long that journey was just from first symptom to when you actually got diagnosed. I think that would be helpful for a lot of people.
For me, for first symptoms, I ignored my symptoms for about probably 6 months to a year. And then like once I actually got to the hospital, I think it took them about 4 to 6 months to give me a diagnosis. And it probably would have taken them a lot longer if my mother didn't literally threaten them to take her own life if they didn't help me, you know? Which is really unfortunate that she had to go to those lengths. But a lot of the time, I don't want to make it a race thing, but a lot of the time, doctors do not pay close enough attention to the health of specifically Black women because they think that I don't know, that we're supposed to endure pain and that, you know, that we're not being genuine when we say that we're in pain.
Yeah, I actually, well, so October of 2019 was actually when I started getting symptoms. I just was losing a lot of weight and like kind of headaches picked up, and I had some low grade fevers that just never went away. And I was bombarding my PCP and going in multiple times a week for just different tests. We tested for probably everything, did hundreds of different things, probably 10 different blood cultures because we couldn't tell if we were doing them wrong or if they really were just negative. We just really couldn't figure out what was going on. And then February, I developed a rash on my neck that actually tested positive for ringworm 3 times. And was actually never ringworm. There is, I think, a medical journal on that somewhere, and I just find it fascinating, and maybe just because it happened to me, but I think it was really cool. And so we went back to my PCP, and he decided to finally run my sed rate and CRP, and those were off the charts. I mean, we all know those are off the charts. And so hospitalized right after that, and my beautiful rheumatologist came in and did her things and found it. So I was diagnosed, I first symptoms in October of 2019, diagnosed in February of 2020. So very, very, very short amount of time. And it was just, I think just luck. I don't know. But yeah, that was it for me.
So for me, thankfully, but not thankfully, I lost the vision in my left eye. Unfortunately, that is permanent, but I think it is what got me a quick diagnosis. Of course, when you're a 14, otherwise healthy person, to lose vision in your eye, that's pretty serious. So I was at, well, it did take a few different ER visits to be turned away and say this is an emergency, you know, things that looking back are just crazy. But I was then admitted to the hospital, saw a whole slur of doctors, but I was diagnosed about a week later. Again, it did cost me my vision, but in my left eye, but I do think that it definitely made the doctors say, hey, we need to figure out what caused this.
I am also kind of on the lower end. I got my first spot in January, and I got the diagnosis 3 months later. Those 3 months felt like forever, I will say. I remember going to the ER and they took about 25 vials of blood from me when I first kind of felt the abdominal pain of the inflammation in my digestive tract. And ultrasounds and x-rays, and then going to contagious diseases, and then okay, finally maybe we'll get you into rheumatology, and oh, if it's a skin rash we'll get you to dermatology. And it was actually the dermatologist who, shout outs to Heather Bigos, if you are in the New Hampshire area, go to Heather Bigos. But she was like, I'm going to figure this out for you because no one else is listening to you. And she had no experience with it. She took my things to like her mentor that she went to like school with, and he had then advised her, do these 2 specific tests, send them out. And it was after those medical terms are leaving me, but she took patches on my skin. They sent it out in that specific ink, told them it was IgA vasculitis. So it was really I think kind of the common theme in between this is like timelines are rough depending on who you got at your disposal, but really all you need is one person that believes you and makes your case their priority.
Yep, totally agree with that. And you know, it kind of goes to show like everybody's timeline is going to be different, you know, depending on where you are, and you know, it shouldn't be like this, but you know, based on where you are, who you are, what your parents do, the resources you have, that is unfortunately like a big factor, and that can, you know, that can lengthen the time it takes to get the clear diagnosis. It can shorten it to, you know, just depending on where you're at. I mean, a big reason why I've wanted to, you know, work with the VF and do things like this, it's just because I felt like it was so unfair. Like my parents are both doctors, and only because they had access was how I was able to get, you know, treatment and diagnosis earlier than I definitely would have. I mean, I thought it was just so ridiculous that just because I happened to have parents, you know, were super caring and had access and had resources, and they, you know, they were able to work. They worked really, really hard and did all these things for me. But obviously, I think we all hope that it becomes easier and a much more simplified process now in the future. Because I think as the more data has come out, it's become obvious, right, that it's like the quicker you can get diagnosed, the less complications you're going to have, and the quicker and, you know, better likelihood you're going to get back to living that full normal life without the complications. So I appreciate you guys all for sharing that. I apologize. I think we got to almost all of our questions, and can't thank everybody enough here for the comments. Emma, Deborah, Courtney, Adam. I'm just scrolling down my list. Yeah, I think I got all these comments here. So thank you guys so much. We can't thank you enough for everything, for your support. Again, our whole goal of this is just to try to share our stories and hope it can be impactful. I know, like for Kyle, Katrina, Jenna, Yanique, I mean, your guys' stories, you guys are inspirations to me whenever I feel down. Like I always try to think of, you know, my friends, people I know who share the disease, and so it's always helpful to know that there are others who are also going alongside the same thing. And definitely, I know from my experience, it has given me strength over the years. So, and actually thanking everybody as well. So I think that does it for us. Again, for Kyle, Katrina, Yanique, Jenna, and Ashley and Jen for setting this up. Thank you guys both for making this a great event. Thanks to everybody, and I think that will do it for us. And obviously we have the chat open as well if anybody wants to communicate directly there. So thanks, guys. So good to see all of you, and I'm sure we will be connecting again soon.
And thank you for moderating, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Great job. Great job.
Yeah, everyone did a great job.